everyone. Today's reading is actually, I'm not really into politics, so I'm not someone who follows the news. I'm not into politics, even in the UK. It's not something where I have strong thoughts, but obviously I do have a thought currently after 14 years. In terms of voting, but I'm not going to share that. What I'm going to do, it's a reading on Donald Trump. He was found guilty on 34 charges and convicted, and I believe on the 11th of July is his sentencing. And so I know that this is important for a lot of people that follow politics, and also having a lot of US subscribers. But here there's something hidden, there's an energy that's hidden. It's not only the energy where Trump might be saying he's being targeted. I'm talking beyond that. So this is an important message that you're going to get. Doesn't matter where you're tuning in from. Give this video a go, because you might find there's a useful message. There's a useful message in trying to work in oneness in a constructive way. There's a useful message on where there's a divide, doesn't have to be sour lemons in between. There's a message of the wider energy that I feel behind it. And so there's going to be a massive sort of, not necessarily twist, but you're going to be like, at the end of it, you're going to be like, my God, what was all that? A bit of a shit show. Maybe he was more of a victim, even though I'm not saying he's not guilty or whatever, but you will realize the larger message collectively, not only in terms of an election within the US. So this is possibly going to be of interest to a lot of people. Hopefully they've given it a go regardless of the title. So I know that I have to be very careful because there's two very strong camps here, but I am not in either, and I don't live in the US, so I'm not even going to try to go down that road. So please remember that while I do this reading. Why am I doing this reading is because we're going to try to understand how the different energies actually, how we're going to work with those different energies, right? And like I said, the larger message. 1 second, I just need to grab something. Hopefully I can get through it all right? Sorry, I just got something pop up on my phone, so I got distracted. And then I saw, was it an 8-minute speech, or was it only supposed to, was just a video I saw 4 minutes of it. Although he looked like he was quite composed, and he definitely wanted to show he's composed, let's just think of something. I think a lot of people could not have gone through this. His image and reputation is really important to him, and I think he has a top Leo placement somewhere in terms of astrology. Now, just before I forget, I did do a short energy note on Joe Biden, who at the time I could feel was not well, and that did come up. Obviously, I think it's said about him not being well, and also about his energy in terms of his aura not fully being present. But I ponder, so you can check that out. It's in the psychic readings of famous people, crime, etc. And I still feel that very lack of soul alignment, a gap in his soul and his presence physically. It's like secretly this is being used as a show for a larger agenda, for a larger reason, but that show can't go on for too long. And so this is where I think you're gonna, at the end of all this, you're gonna be like, what was that about? You know, this was serious, but really, what is this really about? And so watch out for that. There's going to be some real outcomes with like a further twist or a shock turn, basically. And there's fear in him. There's a fear in him that he is no longer in control. So he used to be in a position of power where he was in control. And now he's trying to show there's no fear and he's in some sort of control, but he's not in any form of control. And that is weighing down also on his confidence and his trust. So there is fear there in his energy. And I feel there's also fear of, now I need to rely on or gather my troops, gather the allies, and he doesn't quite like that. Firstly, he won't know who to trust because it can be that whatever he discusses with someone comes out. I'm not talking about guilty stuff. I'm talking about where maybe he's trying to rally his allies. And so a person will be just like, okay, I'm gonna come with a mask. Or, you know, so some form of betrayal, okay? And so he doesn't like that energy. That's also not being controlled, but he needs support. And this could be from people he worked with, people in the higher levels. It could be also family members. So he's definitely looking at the stage of allies, rallying troops, but he has a fear of that. He has a real fear of the betrayal that might come beyond this as well. And he could, I really feel like he really wishes that he could stand in the power of oneness and not be at like the mercy of people. And by that, I don't mean just the public for the election, but in all ways. So how is this guilty verdict? That's the energy I feel for him. I'll go back to pull cards on the energy if I have time, on his energy. But how is this guilty verdict gonna affect his presidential election with 34 counts? So let's look at that. I think it's the 11th of July, if I read rightly, the sentencing. How is this 34 counts of being guilty, being convicted, affect presidential election for him? How is this going to affect the elections for him? It's teaching him patience. It's teaching him moderation with his action. So not to be like I'm getting the word flamboyant in his actions and too overpowering, because that also is not going to win on people's hearts either. But he's not going to be someone who's going to pull on heartstrings either. This is the Wheel of Fortune. So be patient because the wheel will turn, and I'm not surprised about that. Okay, so which way is the wheel going to turn? We need to see that. It seems like there might be some positivity here. Now it's interesting, this came out like this, but as I picked this card, this was kind of in reverse. There's hidden secrets, there's a veil here, and I feel it. There's an absolute veil, and I'm not talking about him being rigged or anything like that, but I do pose one question. A question is, do you really think that he is the only ex-president or president that has got any felonies, that's done stuff that is dodgy? So why now? Is it come up while he's gone for trying to become the president again? Because you know where someone's not in their power, or if it's a sleeping dog, you leave the sleeping dog lie. And when someone's in the power, you know, people try to bring them down. Again, like I said, I'm not for him and I'm not for Biden. I actually feel that when Americans are going to the voting booth, if you were to stand there and pause, you'd probably be like, and I know is there JF Kennedy Jr. as well? Let's look at these choices. You're going to be like, it's not a position where there is a best choice. Like, do you know when your favorite ice cream is, for example, I don't know why I'm getting the word honey, which is really weird. Let's say honeycomb ice cream, because the word honey is coming through. So I don't know what reference that's going to come up for. But when you go in and you really fancy ice cream, but all other places are closed, you find pistachio and chocolate, and it's kind of like, I really, really want ice cream. Yes, it's the point of ice cream, but these two flavors are really not the best two. None of them are even near the honey. So that's how I feel like a lot of voters are going to actually, if you sit with yourself, are going to probably feel like there's a way to clean, there's a need to sort of scrape old energy, totally scrape it. And the word scrape, like, you know that thing, scrape it and cleanse it, and maybe new energy comes in for some time. If an ex-president is elected, after some new energy is embedded, where, you know, they pick up some of that energy, because when a president comes in, they pick up some of the energy that was already in place and then slowly make the movements. They can't just suddenly change. And it seems like that's what maybe might be needed. Like, there's not the best options on the table if you could actually make your best options, if that makes sense. Well, the High Priestess is really saying there's things that around this whole thing that we don't see clearly. And I feel like this is also saying it's very possible the energy could sway. And this is because there's karma. So there's the karma of the felonies, but there's also, now you have, after this, people that are quiet, that are in the middle ground. How are they going to feel after this conviction? Are they going to start to question, or do you start to question, why now? Why Trump? Because is he the only higher up? Is he the only government organization that's not done dodgy stuff? No. It's like the can of worms, like Epstein, Diddy. It's kind of like it was going undercover for so long. Then someone says something and everyone wants to trickle in and go forward on something. This is a very different case, obviously. It's not similar, but this is what we're seeing. Can you see? This is that, and I might do a further reading where we tap into the energy. This is that it's a volatile at the moment. We've got the karma in place, but energies can very much change. But I see these cards quite, and I'm getting something, I don't know, is he a Sagittarius moon? He needs to stand in his, like I said, he needs to be not so flamboyant and rushing in. And I don't know if he's going to start to have, try to have allies from foreign countries as well. So how is this election going to affect, how is the conviction going to affect the election? There is a Tower moment for him though. And there's the Four of Cups. It was like coming in reverse. Top of the card, Two of Wands, the planning ahead, the Tower. So there is a Tower moment coming for him. And then there's this Four of Cups. This Four of Cups is interesting. So with the Four of Cups, one second while I just have a sip of water. Thank you. The Four of Cups in reverse. A bit of pessimism. There is, obviously, it has caused a stain for him. But how can we move forward? He's not happy about this Tower, the stain that's been caused at all. How can we move forward? Now, was his new wife there on trial? That must be a bit difficult if she wasn't. Because, you know, isn't marriage for better or for worse? There's something here on, he might need to grasp on the second best approach. And he's not happy to grasp the second best position or approach. All right, and so it's kind of like looking ahead. How is this guilty conviction affecting him in the election? He is looking upon the past, so this is probably him reflecting upon the past secretly, and the Page of Pentacles and the Hermit card. Where he's probably not acted from a place of being grounded, he's not acted from a place of looking within himself. So I feel after these cards, it will be that a universal timing pushes him, which is like now, into looking into himself. But the decision is, like I said, is very fractal, and the universe is at play for this, for larger messaging, not only for Trump, not only for the election, but for us. You know, what is this doing to us? And I'm going to go into the power of consciousness and messaging around this at the end. That's why I'm hoping I'll do a separate, what I was psychically picking up on in terms of his energy, where I said psychically, but I didn't pull the cards. I'll do that in the next one if you're interested. But here there's sort of, you know, there's a spotlight definitely that's going to be on him. And he knows that he needs to maybe come from a centered place. And there might be some strong vocalized opinions that come out. I won't be surprised if some protests commence or even upheaval on media. And this stain, whether he has a victory at the end of it or not. So we actually started off that this is going to turn out very well, but he's going to be having some challenges himself during this time. Okay, I am not sure if he's going to also feel that whether, you know, certain members of his children are actually going to turn on him. There's a significant of a Virgo, and you know, Spirit's reminding me on the Psychic Global readings where I do global predictions. Either last year, October time, you can check them out. There's still a lot planning out. I mentioned that Trump will be taken down by a female energy. And I don't know if that was the case, but there is still that there. There's going to be a lot of transactional energy for his own agenda, but their own agenda, whoever comes into ally for him. And he knows that. And that is not going to help. He's not going to feel good about that. He's probably done it in the past. A lot of politicians do. But it's kind of like coming from a place of I have to, as opposed to I have power now. I don't have, like before I had power, I don't have the power. There's a Tower, so here I am sure that we would get more major arcanas where there's a new beginning for him. And in the next one, maybe when I do the card read on, so I was picking up psychically about his energy, tapping a bit more into his energy, I might see how his kids feel. But I feel like there's one that's kind of supporting or been there for his father, even though he is not necessarily seeing that his father is innocent, no, but he feels like he's just been present. And it's interesting I say he, so I don't know if it is a he. But what I can say is nothing of him being convicted is really a surprise to us. You know, imagine 34 felonies. You're not gonna, you know, anyone who thought he wasn't going to be convicted, no matter where you are in the world, I just don't think you thought that that would come out. You know, that it would come out that he's totally innocent or anything. He's been in indictment after one after the other, and this, after it slows down, is going to take a bang on his health. Mark my words on it. You know, he is currently in a fighting mode, but he is going to go down with a bang with his health, because not a lot of people could actually handle this. He realizes where he's maybe been a bit careless in the past. And now he realizes that he needs to master certain skills that he hasn't before. And that's really pertaining to like finances, resources, but also his inner self. Reflection of his inner self is what he's escaped from. And now there's a push for him to do that. Can you see how I said there's a universal thing for him? And that's what I'm really getting. But there is a good wheel change, and we'll have to see what that is about. There could be a significant Virgo energy that actually he thinks he has an ally in, that is not actually an ally, but I feel it's more him. It's him. He needs to be careful that he doesn't withdraw and lose his strength for too long, for the long reasons such as fear. And the avoidance of personal responsibility that he's done in the past. He needs to make sure he doesn't fall into that. And it's the past that he's reflecting on, which is a good thing, because obviously he needs to. What I do want to ask you is that why can't people, like, let's take any platform, if you look, if anyone makes a comment that another person doesn't agree with or a view on, take the Karen Read case. That energy is so tense that it can give you, if you're an outsider or psychic that can read into, if you're not just a psychic providing entertainment, you can feel the tension that can give you actually anxiety. There's so much tension and people are so rigid on the thoughts, and it's similar to this, but there is a middle camp that is kind of like maybe not vote, you know, not sure what to vote really, because again, is the choices the best? And so why can't you sort of have an opinion of an opposition, but then we can sit at the same table, speak our differences without attacking each other? Because in the end of the day, we're the public. We don't win this. What do I mean by that? Attacking each other as public, we don't win. At the end of the day, whoever's going to rule is going to rule, whether you're fighting or not fighting. But there's dynamics here that will affect whichever way the boat swings or the vote swings. There's a divide that is going to be feeling helpless, feeling their vote didn't count, feeling their voice didn't count, feeling and the loss of control even within, because it's the government that rules things that are implemented, so it will impact overall within life. And you know, in the UK we've had 14 to 15 years conservatives, and I think a lot of people, which are, I believe is Republican in the USA, and people are over it. I've actually offered in the last UK royal reading. Please take a look at it. You might be interested in it, even if you're in the US. It's nice to understand energies that are going on in the background that I'm psychically tapping into. The UK is fed up with it and ready for that change. So I did offer to read on the elections in each one. A lot of politicians have something to answer to, something to keep in mind overall. A lot of them even have been involved in rings, and for example, it's true that Biden, his daughter, made certain allegations that are apparently true, but it's been swept under the rug for the past 2 years, and then her journal was found, it was brought out again, and it's still swept under. But isn't that also a bit serious? So there's, you know, you're not going to tell me that there's different organizations, politicians, people that have a bit of power that don't do dodgy dealings. And so is there a question of why Trump? Is it because he's gone for presidential? It's beyond him, to be honest with you. That's why I'm saying there's this journey with him to the final straw, but there'll be a moment in the public where you see that there's the larger, I don't want to say control, but in some essence of consciousness. And there's a larger kind of play at it behind in a very veiled way, okay? What I do want to say though, it's extremely important that the American people are allowed to decide. It's crucial, even beyond why you might think it's crucial. You know, in the least, it's about having a voice of expression and not feeling hopelessness. Like, for example, in the big C days, to complete VID, we were very tired. We had to follow, we had to abide, mental health in a very bad way. So if we look at felonies of past, the first felony of an ex-president wasn't the attack that was done on Iraq. It wasn't the attack that was done on the ex-president of Iraq. It wasn't Israeli and Palestine genocide and equipping Israel over the countless of, some of the years. It wasn't for grooming underage, fill in the blank. And this is also rings society's politicians. It wasn't for kind of being involved with EPI or EP, then complete at STEAM. It wasn't for tax fraud. It wasn't for CI spying. It wasn't for joint with Mossad. The very first felony of a former ex-US president was a misclassified amount of over $100,000, don't know the exact thing, payment for a porn star's NDA. That was it. What? So are there bigger fish that could have been caught? Whether it's on Trump's side or any side. It's kind of like Julian Assange. A lot of it is saying that he had files and he was spying on governments, etc., and politicians, and he wanted to leak that out, when actually, in fact, it was a human rights issue that he was trying to bring forward. Now, do you think there might be some kind of tie in that? It's similar to the energy of the whistleblowers of the, the flights, it's Bowers, and suddenly they've disappeared. They wasn't going to whistleblow in terms of certain people, but safety for humans, and also possibly some additional stuff. We hear it. We hear someone's ready to speak and boom, oh, they died in a helicopter crash. I mean, you know, or someone was ready to take action towards another country, oh, they died, they've been wiped out. I think I looked at his date of birth earlier, and I was going to do some numerology and astrology, but I thought I'd see if people were interested in this read first, because I think it's interesting. One of his numbers is very strongly dealing with the law and facing the law, and the other number is facing yourself in a higher version, which is really interesting because we've got it here. I've just been remembered that I took a look. I think the 11th of July is also an interesting number there. And what I do want to say is that regardless of the outcome here, we're going to pull more cards, is the sentencing is just not going to be like, okay, he's sentenced, deal done, that's it, we're gone, and everyone's happy. No. There's a divide. There's a divide of support. People are also going to question, because it'll be coming a bit more to the forefront. There'll be a grieving party or divide. Yes, they will get over it, but there will be some energy there. I'm also, if you want me to do a second read, I'm thinking of looking at, is it Melania Trump, his second wife's energy. So just let me know if you want a second reading on this. Remember, astrologically, Pluto is in the US, which means there's a tower and there's a downfall, and we see that here. But I don't think this verdict that's come out has really changed the supporters, voters. But it might make people wonder some things. Now, I saw 4 minutes of his speech, right? And it was clear for me of reading his energy, but also a lot of what he said was a bit rambly. But people will get caught up in that, and you might have got caught up in that, but now while you listen to this, you're like, actually, yeah, he did go off on about, I think at one stage he mentioned, and let me know if you're in the US, he mentions about people going to work and actually being paid with no issues. So has that been an issue since he left? He mentioned something about McDonald's, and I was thinking, this is about you, so I know that we want to talk about presidential and etc. But there was a bit of like trying to get buy-in, and you can understand why. But I feel like it was a bit waffly, and he could have done a bit more of a better job at it. So let's just pull, now that we see how, I did want to pull a couple of more cards for the election, didn't I? So let's see. Show me 3 more cards. The first one was the Fool, so a new chapter does begin here, okay, whatever that outcome is. The second is the Judgment, and can you remember how I said, I can guarantee you we're going to get cards that says universal timing. It's interesting, the female pops up again, the female I mentioned that will take him down. But here we've got, you know, how is the election going to go? It definitely is. There's a tower moment, but there's a new chapter here. And there's a chapter that brings in, obviously, that Judgment. It seems like the Judgment, I'm getting something about the appeal. I think the appeal, if he goes for appeal, it's actually going to be positive for him. And I think there's going to be some kind of understanding emotionally more on in terms of what is being done, which is interesting. I do want to pull 2 more cards after this Judgment. We'll put this back. I think also I mentioned Melania. I don't know if she's supporting him at the forefront. I don't know why I can't feel her energy at the forefront with him. So I don't know if she's going to the courts with him or not. But there is some kind of support from her here. So let's see. I knew this would come out, but it's good it comes out in reverse in essence, okay? So here it's really about some exposure on outcome, okay? An exposure on outcome of being tied, being chained, being controlled. Again, this might be going into the wider messaging I was mentioning, but it seems like the perception and seeing that clearly, we're talking about the election, but I'm getting that wider message coming through. It's coming through here. Another card on the Judgment, please. Election, for how it's going to affect him. The Chariot. And things will move forward. So this could actually read either way, all right? We don't get the Death card, but there is a movement, there is a forward movement that happens, that occurs. And so it's really interesting, but regardless, there's karma at play here, but there's also the universe of destiny, that energy is moving currently in several directions around this, okay? If I had to give a solid answer on how this will affect his election, I can do that, but I want to hold up. I want to do another reading on it because I want to stick to this message that I want to give us all, okay? So that's what we get with that. Let's look at, I do think the appeal, if he goes for appeal, would be positive. Does he have a choice to appeal? I think with that, if he has a choice to appeal in a different state, there's a positive outcome for him. I don't know if that's possible in the US. Can you appeal from in a different state? If so, that is definitely going to be a positive thing for him. Now let's look. I had a note while I was making this. I do think, by the way, as heat gets turned up at some stage, I don't know how to say this, but I think there's going to be an attempt to assassin. And you can think of who I'm talking about and how we place that. Just checking the time. Okay. So we need to probably think of that. It will be a bit of a fairer trial or appeal. But see, once things come to court and legal matters, it doesn't matter if other people are doing dodgy things. What's been brought to light has to be reprimanded. I'm getting that word, reprimanded, very strong word. And there needs to be accountability. So this cannot be swept under the rug. But again, there is a larger thing that you're going to see, a twist where it's kind of like, how could so much... I don't understand how someone who is a felon be running for presidency anyway. I think while you're in that position, you should be like, you're not able to run for presidency. If after completion of all this, maybe you have to be 2 years out of it and then you can run for presidency. The whole thing mind boggles me, absolutely. And I think that's why there's a larger veil at play here. There's very much a lot of distraction for us. There's very much, and I'm going to get into the final words around that. There's a lot around sowing in people's mind different thoughts, and also sowing in people's mind to confuse you, sowing dates in your mind as well, in the public's mind. And that's from media, and that's from whoever can move media in a certain direction. So obviously there's a question of, will he go to jail as well? But this is really challenging the collectiveness, right? The collective consciousness. larger message around the whole thing is, look, and this applies because the US is very strong. What happens with the US is going to impact us, not all collectively because only energy, but also countries that ally, countries that are, you know, the US is a powerful country. Here it's talking about, so what is the further collective message? Don't take everything you see on the side that you're given and drink it. How do you know what's in it? Don't listen to everything that's online media that's going around in the world. Can you look at things from your own point of view? Can you dismantle them to see if they make sense? Do they make sense to be all aligned, or is there some misfits here? Can you tap into your consciousness and your third eye and just see if there's anything that is blank that's not making sense? We get this Virgo card that keeps popping up like this, not quite come out. Again, looking within oneself. Can you think of decisions for yourself without being offered things that's out in media and you just grasp them? The wider collective message. There is definitely a new kind of energy trying to come through. Or can we hone in on that? Or are we going to stay in this sort of energy? Look at that, the Judgment. And what did I say about trying to cause confusion? So can we have better judgment of the new energy that we need to be in? We're no longer, you know, if you look at stuff, and I definitely know from the subscribers that I have on my channel, is more awakened than other channels where there's so much drama, so much, again, this sort of energy, but it's the energy that people buy into, unfortunately. And if I could only sort of do this without being deceptive, which I'd never do, I probably would have had a channel that went all along the way. Or even if I didn't also read on certain cases that had sensitive names in them from the beginning of starting, it wouldn't have been an issue. But here there is definitely, have that perception, don't get confused about things that's all going around, because there is confusion and there is cloudiness that you can't see. I'm telling you, there's an energy behind this. Forget, it's beyond Trump, it's beyond targeting Trump. 9 of Cups, Chariot, and 10 of Cups. Getting told to use this deck to clarify. So I want one card for the 9 of Cups, the Empress, one card for the Chariot, the Page of Swords, and one card for the 10 of Cups. What's important to you? Is it all this, or is it your family? Where are you dedicating your work, your time, your essence? Is it to your family, or is it to everything else that's going wrong? Interesting. Going on. And we do get swapped into what is wrong. Are we only, you know, can we move forward beyond the online, the information, everything coming forward, stalking, needing to open our phone, check the latest, etc., where we put ourselves walking on a thin rope? Can we move beyond that? Can we move beyond the greed? And this is also, I feel this is also Trump, okay? So can we move beyond the greed? And this is for like politicians and people. Can you be in a more divine feminine energy? Trusting the universe, flowing with the universe, being in a creative manner with people, with oneness, as opposed to sort of this energy. So, you know, here there's like the legal system. There is a larger agenda here, like I said. I can't emphasize that energy, and I'm not talking about targeting. I keep saying this because I don't want people to get upset. I'm not talking about whether targeting Trump or not, because you're going to see some sort of information where you're going to be like, well, what was all that about? If someone's guilty of 34 convictions and felony, how can this sort of trickle out? How can this happen? How can suddenly something else is pushed in and we're captivated by that other thing? There's a lot of politicians, organizations that have stains. But like I said, once something is brought up now to this level, you can't just sweep it up and say, oh, others have stains. But we just need to keep that a little bit in mind. The consciousness of the way some of us are being led, some of us are questioning it. And that's why, like, for example, cases of certain criminal cases, we're not buying it anymore, sorry, no. That's on the very basic sort of level where something's not making sense. And so it's important to not feel easily led into stuff. This goes for me, it goes for everyone, because as a human, there's no one that's Gandhi, and Gandhi was even human, and I think there would have also been questions on him. There's no one, if you're so elevated, you're not going to be on earth. But can you just be aware of where you're being led and guided? And the problem with these elections, and the problem with a lot of consciousness kind of driven stuff, is that, or subconsciousness and unconsciousness driven stuff, is that you can be guided by the wrong people. And we saw the Seven of Cups come up confirming that message. And it can be dangerous. And so how can we remember to question something? How can we remember that we might have different opinions and it comes from a certain place? It might not come because we're supporting someone who's guilty. It might come because that's what we truly believe. That's what we see, or that's what we're following in terms of consciousness messaging. And you see it in one way, but this person's not reached that way yet. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this reading. Like I said, if you want a further second sort of reading on energy check-in, please do let me know. And take care of yourselves. And I hope like I said, I think it's clear that I don't have one side or the other of the coin. I just wanted to really say as a prediction some of the stuff that I brought up, but also something will come to light and you're going to see a bit more of stuff, not that's other stuff that was veiled, for example, not solely on one named person or names of people, basically. So look out for that. Take care, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this. Like, subscribe if you wish to. There's a super thanks, and there's also the PayPal donation link as always. And sometimes I always mention the description box because I put notes in those, and there's all the other information you want if you want any of my services, energy healing, clearing, readings, and so on. And there's also the bio. Take care of yourselves and have a beautiful morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you see this read. Bye for now.